Hey everyone, welcome to Strengthening Our Wellness Community Through Connection. Today I'm talking to Sarah Ronhovde, and she is the owner of Epic Physiotherapy in Kemba River. And Sarah and I actually did our TRE provider training together, I think 4 years ago now. It's been 4 years, yeah. And Sarah's on track to become a provider, mentor, and trainer herself, and she'll be fantastic at it. She's been such a great support for me. And we actually did our first Zoom TRE intro class together on April 28th, which went pretty well considering it was our first go at it. We've all had steep learning curves during this time. So welcome, Sarah. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Rachel.
Yeah. So can you tell us a bit about your practice and a little bit about how TRE has impacted your life and how you offer it as a PT?
So I guess the best way to start is that I had my own host of injuries, and my body was really constricted. It wasn't recovering athletically. I was struggling with bilateral Achilles tendonitis and trying to really just access certain muscle groups that I was kind of struggling to engage and activate, and didn't matter how many physio exercises I did, how many programs I went to or went on, I couldn't seem to release the tightness in my body. Yoga classes, like it didn't matter. And when I was introduced to TRE, I just, I shook, I did the exercises and I shook for maybe 5-6 minutes. And I stood up and I literally felt like a different person in my body. I felt like I had access to areas of my body that I hadn't really, I could barely remember how to have access to them. And for the first time, I noticed how disempowered I had felt in my body, and I had hope. And so I signed up immediately for the training, and it was through the training that I started to understand some things that I had intuitively observed in practice about how the body is holding stress, tension, trauma in ways that I couldn't understand based on my physiotherapy training, which was really at the time so focused on the physical body and not really acknowledging how the mind and body and spirit all impact each other. And so the TRE kind of brought the mind, body, and spirit together in a way that helped me understand I could impact the body through the exercises, but that would also impact the mind and the spirit, and that that I had access to a whole new world that I had been trying to explore clinically and personally, but there was a missing piece. And so TRE was the missing piece. The education on tension, stress, and trauma is what I love to call the missing curriculum. I think it is, as I commented in the workshop that we ran together, it is truly what we need to be teaching our children from the ground up, is understanding our own humanity based on how our nervous system is actually evolved to function and how it keeps us alive, right? So there isn't a like right or wrong in our nervous system. It's just an acknowledgement of where you're at in your nervous system and what tools you have access to. TRE being one of the tools that you have access to down-regulate yourself out of a heightened state, especially if you've been in a heightened state like I was for a very long time.
Amazing. How do you see TRE helping moving forward? This is this is a stressful and, dare I say, traumatic time for lots of people. How do you see TRE helping or supporting that?
So one of the things I love about TRE is this conversation around body sensations, that we are so used to being in our mind and having our mind drive our body. And the whole practice of TRE is just really about attention to what's happening in your body. What is your body expressing? What are the body sensations that are there? And I think the more you practice TRE, the more you can start to be with the sensations that are in your body. And at this time, there is a lot of discomfort. There's a lot of uncertainty. There is an exceptional amount of grief, because no change does not involve letting go of the old and moving into the new. And in the letting go of the old, there's the grief of the old way that it was. There's missing colleagues, and missing face-to-face connection, and missing going to the gym, missing your workouts, missing meals with friends. Everyone's thing is different, and maybe some people aren't experiencing any missing or any grief, but I know a lot of people are really uncomfortable with grief. We haven't been taught to sit with being uncomfortable at all. We're very, very comfortable. And as a culture in this time of uncertainty, I think TRE moving forward is a great way to be with the body sensations of particularly discomfort, uncertainty, and sadness, or grief, or anger, or frustration, or even joy, right? Being able to sit with all of the sensations that you might be experiencing at this time and to be with them. So I think that TRE is just such a fantastic vessel for that be with experience. To practice it too. It's not just about like doing it. It's about TRE opens up the opportunity for a practice of it, because we are never done practicing being with our experience.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I like that. What about what's your feeling on like the frontline workers right now? I feel like that's a bit of a different perspective, because they are experiencing what we're all experiencing, but also having to sort of push forward or push through in a way to provide us all with their magic. Thank goodness for all the frontline workers.
I know.
It's a bit of a different perspective for them.
I echo your gratitude. And the frontline workers that I have on my caseload right now, I'm not exactly sure when and how TRE is going to fit in, is the honest truth. We're doing a lot more being with emotional, being with some of the more difficult emotions, and perhaps not using TRE as the methodology at that time. And I'll talk about this a little bit later, but I am just encouraging them to sit with what's happening, and instead of having another thing to do, just encouraging a sitting with, which is also, in some ways a form of TRE, but something you and I both know and that I advocate is when someone is in shock or, kind of in that fight or flight, and they might not be able to move out of the fight or flight, or they're not practiced in it, we have to be really conscious about when and how we start to downregulate the system in a way that's safe. And I think right now, when there's this kind of, the communication I'm getting from the frontline workers I'm working with is that there's this calm before the storm. And I think that just really emphasizing breath as a concept and teaching people what it is like to feel their breath has been a more important component of my practice of working with tension, stress, and trauma, because that builds that resilience for when you're in the middle of it, that being able to be with the discomfort. So if they haven't practiced TRE, I'm kind of conscious of where that might fit in and where it might not be beneficial right now. Whereas people who are more isolated or quarantined and aren't out in the world are given the opportunity to really observe their body sensations from a more regulated standpoint. And I think that develops a little bit more safety. So in that case, frontline workers, I think TRE is a very specific modality for the right person in the right situation at the right time. And I think that working with a provider in order to identify that is absolutely critical. I wouldn't be recommending it be a workshop thing or check out the app or the video on YouTube to try it on your own. I think that right now, as supportive, wellness, as part of our wellness community, our job in supporting frontline workers is truly, I think, an individualized approach.
Yeah, agreed. And I feel like, that when you're in it, it's maybe not the time, I love that point, to do more, but rather step back, drop into yourself, assess the situation.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, and then in terms of TRE, that is exactly why we are TRE providers, is to be able to help people find that safe space and find the appropriate amount of practice for them.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, and then, so how are you staying positive and healthy during this time? Do you have some tools that you're using, or how do you navigate this time?
So I love this question, because my first thought was, well, I'm not focused on staying positive. I I believe that there's so many different emotions other than positivity.
Mm-hmm.
And we're so focused on staying positive as a culture in a time where, like, we don't know what things are going to look like, and it's really scary.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot, like, I know there's beautiful things to be grateful for. But we also all need to let ourselves feel all the different kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I made some notes on this one, because I was like, I just want to remember a few points.
Yeah.
But this is just such a great opportunity to explore what it looks like to be fully healthy. And I think healthy involves emotional exploration and expression. And so there's been, I mean, I feel like you'd have to be living in a hole in the wellness community if you weren't seeing just the basics, like sleep, diet, exercise, community. Like, those are the pillars, like, that's what I'm conscious of, is eating well, getting exercise that makes me feel good in my body, connecting with others, but also really connecting with myself, being able to identify when I am done being in front of a screen. I can't do another FaceTime. I don't want to talk to another person. I just want to sit with myself.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not comfortable with that, I suggest that you try it. And just
Get comfortable with being with yourself, you mean?
exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And notice your discomfort, and just practice that a little bit. But I would say the thing I think that is actually, I would say, increasing my well-being more than it was 3 weeks ago is allowing myself to feel areas that are triggered by this, that I would not have had access to were we not in a pandemic, because I wouldn't be forced to reconcile parts of me that are frustrated or irritated or angry, or this part of me that I have a big part of me. It's my own thing around, and I know everyone has some variety of this, but this, like, it's not safe. And just being with that, like, external, it's not safe, and how do I bring an internal feeling of safety within? How do I practice that? How do I reconcile that? That to me is actually more important than the diet, the sleep, the movement, and the connection. I think without feeling the feelings, I would not be in the position of health that I am in right now, regardless of how much of the other stuff I throw at it. And I see that in my caseload as well.
Mm-hmm.
People that are like, but I'm doing all the things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I feel like crap. And I'm like, are you feeling any of the feelings? And they're like, no, feelings are a waste of time. And I'm like, let's talk about body sensations. Like, feelings are just body sensations, right?
Yeah.
So we need them to move through us in order to be healthy.
Yeah. I really resonate with all that. I love that. And I felt like, especially in the first little bit, that for me, the pressure to push through or be positive or be productive, huge. And I really had to, like, give myself permission to stop and just really feel however I was feeling. And those feelings were like that, right? But I had to literally give myself permission to like, just, no, I don't have to do anything right now. I can just be sad, happy, whatever it is. So I love that. That's a really good tip. So, do you have an exercise that you could share, something of mind, body, or soul that would be a little tidbit for us to take away today?
Yeah, I want to just kind of break the mold and say my exercise is I would suggest that you sit and stare at something beautiful for 5 minutes.
Oh, I
Five
love it.
minutes a day. Something in quiet. Um, I had a counselor once say she had 5 kids, and I have a 1.5-year-old, and I was like, okay, I need some strategies.
Yeah.
And she's like, you don't need strategies, you need space.
Mm.
And what she did was she cleared out this one little corner of her house, and she set like just really basic little square table.
Yeah.
And she always had flowers, a vase of flowers on this square table. And she would sit her chair in front of this square table. And the house was just like a chaotic mess of like kids and husband
5
and
kids.
life
Yeah.
and everything behind her. And she would just stare at the beauty on this table, and just like let life move through her instead of like pushing and moving through life and making it kind of fit her mold. And I mean, I don't have that table, that's not my thing.
Yeah.
But I can just sit and stare at the same tree in my yard every day and just be like, wow, that tree's still there, right? It's not about like, and I don't have a purpose. It's not about cultivating gratitude or breathing or joy or mindfulness or anything. It's just like, oh, look, the tree's still there.
Simpleness. Yeah.
Like, and I just try to get that, for 5 minutes.
Nice.
And sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes it's at 5 a.m. in the darkness, and I know that tree's there, but I also know that my daughter's going to wake up at like 5:15. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to take my 15 minutes with my tree right here in the dark. It's great.
Crazy. It's the intention, really.
Yeah.
You can conjure something beautiful in your mind.
Yeah, totally. But it is just that, like that permission to sit and be, to sit and stare. And if you don't want to stare at something beautiful, then don't. Just sit and stare at the wall. That's sometimes a practice that's sometimes homework for some of my clients. I'm like, I know you want to lose weight, and I need you to sit and stare at the wall for a second. And be with yourself and your thoughts, and give yourself permission to just be with yourself and breathe. And there's so much, there's just so much there.
Yeah.
It can be awful and beautiful and delicious and inspiring and disgusting all at the same time.
Yeah. And that's the goal, just to notice, no judgment, just notice what comes up for you if you're actually just still for 5 minutes.
Yeah, totally. And if you just feel numb staring at the wall, that's okay too. Like, it's okay in this time of grief. I mean, you have to remember what grief is like. If you've ever lost someone that you loved or something that you love, like, sometimes you just need to sit and stare at the wall. And so, like, for a day or 2 or 3 or 7 or 15 or 42.
Yeah.
You might not need that in the pandemic, but in this pandemic, however, I think you'll get stuck there if you don't let yourself do it. So that's that's the exercise, definitely.
Love it. So I know that you have a little munchkin at home and you've had some time off. Where can we find you, access what you have to offer?
Well, you can check out my website. It's epicphysiotherapy.ca. I'll acknowledge my own humanity. When you go to the contact section, it says I'm still on maternity leave. That needs to get changed at some point when I'm not staring at the wall, I guess, when I'm being productive in my pandemic time. However,
but they can email you through there, right?
They cannot email me through there because when I was on mat leave, I didn't want emails.
Fair. Okay.
But that's a really easy fix. And I'll try to fix that on my website as soon as possible. And you can just email me, Sarah, SARAH, at Epic, EPIC, Physiotherapy, PHYSIOTHERAPY.
Nice. And we're looking forward to getting some more TRE intros on Zoom, coming up with the Line Movement Studio soon as well. So you can keep an eye out on my website or my MindBody site to see those coming up too.
Perfect.
And hopefully everyone gets to see you again and gets to experience your amazing knowledge with TRE. It's really, the intro session was such a good way to synopsis how TRE functions both physiologically and neurologically, and a chance to experience some of the tremoring too. That's great. All right. Well, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Rachel. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Have a great day. I can't wait to go stare at something beautiful now.
Go do it.
Okay, take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.